And I looked at her, and my heart sank. And I said, no, I have nothing to tell you.
Hollywood has always hidden its darkest truths behind bright lights, but nothing was buried deeper than Katharine Hepburn's secret list, the 7 women she allegedly loved, dated, and later despised. For decades, the public saw Hepburn as the iron-willed queen of independence, a woman who refused to be owned by any man. But behind that flawless facade was a private world filled with forbidden romances, emotional betrayals, and relationships so dangerous they could have destroyed her career overnight. And now, for the first time, we open the door she kept locked her entire life. Because the first name on that list is the one no one expected: Greta Garbo, the silence that cut deeper than any betrayal. Greta Garbo was the woman Hollywood could never decipher: cold, distant, untouchable. But for Katharine Hepburn, Garbo was more than an enigma. She was the first name on the list of women who shaped her heart and wounded it in equal measure. Their circles overlapped in the late 1930 seconds, where privacy was currency and silence could be weaponized. Garbo invited Hepburn into a world most people never saw. Secluded apartments, long walks away from cameras, conversations that wandered from art to loneliness. But the closer Hepburn came, the faster Garbo retreated. The relationship, if it ever had the chance to become real, died not through anger, but through absence. Garbo's emotional distance was legendary, and even Hepburn, with her iron will, couldn't penetrate it. In later years, insiders whispered that Hepburn never forgave Garbo for refusing to let her in, emotionally or otherwise. It was a heartbreak without theatrics, just a quiet door closing forever. And if Garbo represented cold mystery, the next woman on Hepburn's list was the exact opposite: a wildfire who demanded to be felt. Tallulah Bankhead, the hurricane Hepburn never should have loved. Tallulah Bankhead didn't merely enter a room, she detonated in the center of it, leaving cigarette smoke, laughter, and chaos swirling behind her. She was loud, intoxicating, sensual, and utterly impossible to ignore. For Hepburn, who lived with calculated restraint and tightly controlled emotions, Bankhead represented everything she tried to keep locked away. And that was exactly why she was so dangerously irresistible. Their rumored affair began not with subtle flirtation, but with Bankhead's signature boldness. She chased Hepburn openly, brazenly, as if daring her to admit she wanted the fire just as much. What followed was less romance and more a violent collision of incompatible worlds. Bankhead thrived in excess. Too many drinks, too many lovers, too many nights that ended at sunrise. Hepburn, who guarded her image with iron precision, found herself swept into a whirlwind she couldn't manage or predict. The attraction was undeniable, almost chemical, but so was the destruction. Their brief connection burned at full temperature until, inevitably, it consumed itself. Hollywood insiders later whispered that Hepburn referred to Bankhead as an emotional hurricane I never should have stepped into, a confession filled with regret, fascination, and lingering fear. Garbo may have wounded Hepburn through silence, but Bankhead wounded her with heat wild, erratic, and overwhelming. And standing between these two extremes, waiting in the shadows, was the woman who posed the greatest threat of all, the one who collected secrets like trophies. Mercedes de Acosta, the woman who knew too much. Mercedes de Acosta was not merely a lover of famous women, she was a collector of secrets. A poet, a playwright, and a chronicler of her own affairs, she was adored by some and feared by others. Hepburn's rumored involvement with de Acosta was brief, sharp, and shadowed by danger. Unlike Garbo or Bankhead, Mercedes kept letters intimate letters, and Hepburn, more than anyone else, valued control over her image. Their affair supposedly flourished in quiet corners of Hollywood's bohemian scene, but Hepburn ended it quickly when she realized de Acosta could expose her with a single misplaced page. Mercedes wanted honesty, Hepburn wanted survival. The two desires were incompatible. Insiders claimed Hepburn cut her off brutally, refusing further contact. She knew too much. one studio source said, and Kate could never risk that. If Garbo represented emotional denial and Bankhead represented emotional chaos, Mercedes represented the one thing Hepburn feared most: vulnerability in someone else's hands. But the next woman on her list wasn't a threat because of secrets, she was a threat because of ambition. Joan Crawford, the queen who refused to bow. Joan Crawford was a titan, commanding, glamorous, and fiercely ambitious. She and Hepburn had always shared an uneasy rivalry, but beneath the competition flickered a chemistry that Hollywood gossip columnists could never quite prove. According to whispered accounts, their brief entanglement was as sharp as Crawford's cheekbones, full of tension and impossible expectations. Crawford wanted Hepburn's devotion. Hepburn wanted Crawford's restraint. Neither woman got what she wanted. Crawford reportedly criticized Hepburn for being emotionally unavailable, while Hepburn dismissed Crawford as a woman who lived for applause, not intimacy. Their affair died quickly, but the bitterness lingered. Hepburn supposedly said, "She played strong women on screen, but couldn't stand one in real life." Crawford returned the sentiment with scathing indifference. If D'Acosta threatened Hepburn with exposure, Crawford threatened her with competition, a challenge to her identity, her power, her sense of control. And the next woman would challenge her in a way neither Crawford nor any man ever could. Barbara Stanwyck, the mirror Hepburn couldn't face. Barbara Stanwyck was more like Hepburn than any other woman on the list: independent, guarded, ambitious, and emotionally complex. Their rumored connection emerged during a period of turmoil in both their lives, when careers were shifting and public pressures were mounting. Unlike the chaos of Bankhead or the secrecy of D'Acosta, Stanwyck represented something more intimate, a reflection. Insiders believed their affair was a meeting of equals, two steel-spined women who understood one another too well. And that was the problem. Hepburn reportedly described her as a mirror of myself I couldn't keep looking into. Stanwyck exposed parts of Hepburn she preferred to hide: fear, desire, tenderness, vulnerability. The relationship didn't end in betrayal or scandal, just a mutual understanding that they were too similar to survive together. If Crawford challenged Hepburn with ambition, Stanwyck challenged her with truth. And now, as the list draws closer to its end, we enter the territory not of lovers, but of mentors. Dorothy Arzner, the director who shaped her and broke her. Dorothy Arzner was Hollywood's only major female director of the era, a pioneer, a rule-breaker, and a woman who moved quietly but confidently through an industry built to exclude her. Hepburn admired Arzner deeply, maybe too deeply. The bond between them blurred professional respect and personal longing, at least according to the whispers preserved in studio backrooms. Arzner nurtured Hepburn's talent, encouraged her assertiveness, and pushed her toward choices that cemented her legacy. But what Hepburn wanted from her went beyond mentorship, and Arzner, careful, private, strategic, refused to let their connection evolve publicly. This wounded Hepburn more profoundly than any affair. She could handle rejection from lovers, but not from someone she revered. Arzner's refusal to acknowledge their closeness left Hepburn feeling invisible in a way no audience had ever made her feel. If Stanwyck was a mirror, Arzner was a teacher, and teachers sometimes wound without meaning to. That left only one woman on her list. The one whose betrayal was the smallest, yet somehow cut the deepest. Judy Holliday, the sweetest wound of all. Judy Holliday wasn't the type of woman anyone would place at the center of a Hollywood scandal. She was sunshine personified, bright, warm, effortlessly charming, the kind of presence that lifted a room simply by stepping into it. Yet it was precisely this softness, this disarming innocence, that made her appearance on Katharine Hepburn's secret list so shocking. Their bond formed quietly on the Columbia Pictures lot, built through late-night rehearsals, shared frustrations, and the delicate, unspoken comfort of two women trying to survive an industry that rarely showed mercy. But unlike the other women in Hepburn's orbit, women who were powerful, intimidating, or emotionally armored, Holliday was governed by fear. She knew the price of being misunderstood in Hollywood, She knew what whispers could do. For someone who had fought so hard to build a career, scandal wasn't just dangerous, it was fatal. Hepburn offered her an emotional refuge, but Holliday couldn't step into it without risking everything she'd ever earned. So when she pulled back, it wasn't rejection born of cruelty. It was a plea for self-preservation. Still, Hepburn felt the loss like a sharp, quiet betrayal. She chose the stage over truth, Hepburn allegedly said. I can't fault her for that, but I couldn't forgive it either. And in a life filled with formidable, overwhelming personalities, it was Holliday the gentlest, the least threatening, who left the most enduring bruise on Hepburn's heart. In the end, Katharine Hepburn's legacy is far more complicated than the polished Hollywood narratives ever allowed the public to see. She wasn't simply the woman of sharp wit, tailored trousers, and untouchable independence. She was a storm of contradictions, fierce yet fragile, guarded yet desperate to be understood, disciplined yet shaped by desires she could never publicly claim. The 7 women she kept in her private emotional orbit weren't footnotes in a hidden chapter. They were reflections of the battles she fought every day behind the curtain. Greta Garbo represented the silence that froze her. Tallulah Bankhead represented the fire that consumed her. Mercedes de Acosta represented the danger that threatened her. Joan Crawford represented the ambition that challenged her. Barbara Stanwyck represented the truth that exposed her. Dorothy Arzner represented the mentorship that restrained her. And Judy Holliday, the least expected, the gentlest, represented the wound that lingered long after the applause faded. Together, these 7 women form a hidden constellation in Hepburn's personal universe, a map of heartbreaks, betrayals, fears, and longings that reveal the private cost of surviving Hollywood as a woman who refused to be defined by anyone but herself. While the public adored her for her strength, the truth is that she carried the weight of secrets that could have ended her career in an era merciless to anything outside the norm. Yet she endured. She reinvented herself. She remained untouchable, not because she had nothing to hide, but because she refused to let her vulnerabilities become her downfall. And perhaps that is why her story still fascinates audiences today, especially those who grew up watching her on black and white screens and saw in her a kind of courage they wished they had possessed. Katharine Hepburn wasn't fearless, she was simply unwilling to let fear win. As we look back on her life, the question remains: how many legends have we celebrated without ever truly knowing them? And how many secrets still lie buried in Hollywood's golden age, waiting for someone brave enough to unearth them? Drop a comment below telling us which name on Hepburn's secret list shocked you the most. If you want more untold Hollywood stories, raw, unfiltered, and buried, for decades, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on notifications so you never miss the truth behind the legends.